Welcome everybody to the actual story of actual play. I'm your host as always, Jake, and today I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by a really cool cast of characters. Say hi to everyone.
Hello!
Today I'm being joined by the Forge of Lore crew, which run a really fantastic actual play YouTube channel, and I think we should have the pleasure of just jumping right into it. So I want to know,
Absolutely.
first off, why and when did you start your project?
I'll let Eric start with that, because it was his idea.
Actually, when I was on paternity leave after my wife gave birth to our daughter, I was kind of just like, oh man, I need to do something. I need to, actually have something that I can show, something that is I can point at and go, I'm proud of this. And in the past, I had tried stuff like that long ago, but I couldn't find a group of really committed and passionate people, so it always kind of just fizzled out. But guess what? I had a freaking game of D&D, and there's 2 people in there, and they were a couple goofballs, and I was like, hey guys, hey, I got an idea. And that was like May-ish, like mid to end of May of 2022.
Yeah, he came to us, hey, so I had this idea for, do you guys want to do a D&D, YouTube show? And Emmy and I had kind of been talking about it before, but, we don't know anyone that, would be good, characters. And then he mentioned that. I'm like, yes, please, yes. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. And as you have very nicely done here with your setup, I can see that you all have little titles. And could you go more in depth as to what you each do in the show? Not so much your characters,
Sure.
but your behind-the-scenes roles.
Sure. Well, I'm Steve. As you can see, I am tech director. So I work in IT as a full-time job, doing network analyst stuff, and I've always been fascinated with computers, but also video production. Kind of had a dream of being an actor, so I wanted to start a YouTube, and I found, if I'm going to do YouTube videos, I need to learn everything from filming to audio to editing, everything. So I learned it. Thanks, YouTube, for teaching me how to YouTube. And so when we started kind of this idea, I was like, okay, well, I'll be the tech side because it's kind of my thing. I played around with OBS and other tools before, so it took almost a month to kind of perfect the setup that we use in the show. But yeah, and then I'm also DM of the first campaign, but we can get into that later.
Well, so I am the creative director. Where's that on the screen? Here. It's right here.
Yes.
So basically, my daughter kind of threw a wrench into a lot of the more time-intensive things with regards to pre- and post-production, but I guess you can say I come up with lots of the ideas for different types of content for us to put out. Ads or little clips, different kinds of promotional stuff, and just kind of keep track of. I do a lot of the social media stuff, although there's so much of it that we all kind of share that responsibility back and forth.
So are you responsible for the in-character interviews that are up on your channel?
Oh boy, well, I might have maybe had the idea for that. That's my thing. I have the idea
Yes.
for stuff, and then it's oh, that's gonna take 1,000,000 hours. Well, I gotta go change a diaper, so whoosh, and then I leave, and then someone else does all the work.
That's perfect. I wish I had someone to do all the work after I come up with ideas.
Oh God, no! I so wish. It hurts me so bad that I can't just be editing all the time. That's what I do for a living, so I would love to just be doing that all the time. That would be heaven, man. But unfortunately, right now, it might get better later. But yeah.
As you can see, I'm the art director. So everything that you see, as far as the layout goes here, I came up with the design for. Steve told me it was going to be a world where there's a lot of sand, so I made everything very sand-based, and he also gave me the idea for Jotunfoder, which is this giant robot back here. Watch the show to learn more. So he gave me that idea, and I kind of fleshed it out, and I work out all the artwork for our show, and I also do a lot of the audio editing for the show. Learning a lot as we go. It started out a little rougher, but not terrible, but we just keep getting better as we learn.
Steve and Eric, sort of harkening back to what you said previously about all having full-time jobs, when you started this project, did you come into it with the intention of this is a really cool side project that we do as friends? Or did you come into it with a more sort of ambitious attempt of this is a really cool thing that we're going to focus hard on, and then in the future it'll be all we focus on?
I mean, bit of both. Essentially we kind of decided to start this project with the hope and kind of goal of it becoming a full-time. And quitting our day jobs and doing this full time. But at least for myself, it's like, yeah, that would be really nice and I'm going to work for that. But I'm not like, I'm keeping my hopes down, but still working for it. I don't like disappointing myself, I guess.
Keeping your expectations realistic, but dreams high is always good.
Exactly.
And so, about that sort of process, when you started, what in your minds was like the thing of, oh, there's a million actual plays out there. How do we differentiate ourselves from both the other smaller people and the giants?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, when we got together, the three of us have a history in video editing and production. I had, like, a crappy old YouTube that I want no one to find, but they probably will anyway, of terrible videos
there'll be a
where
link
I
in
learned
the
special
description.
effects and stuff. Sorry. I've had that history of just learning video production. As Eric said, he's like a professional video editor. I've also professionally edited videos. Emmy has professionally edited videos. So we're kind of hoping that our kind of special sauce would be the production value. Hopefully it works.
Well, I thought it would also be kind of stand out to have our own artwork in the mix and to be able to produce a visual for the audience to kind of give them a little bit more than what is typically out there. And then, of course, Eric has always been our ideas guy. He is usually texting going, oh, also, and oh, also. And with those ideas, and the three of us being able to we specialize in this field, putting our heads together, we definitely have managed to kind of do a couple different things in that.
Absolutely. And it's important to yes and in this kind of business, which it feels like you guys are definitely good at. I want to just real quick, because you mentioned your special effects and your like visuals and stuff as your secret sauce, your special sauce. Do you ever sometimes feel like your special sauce distracts from the story and like from the core version of what is an actual play?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I try to keep it somewhat minimal. Like this fire down below, this is part of one of our usual backgrounds, like for nighttime, like a campfire. That's pretty much like the loudest I try getting. I try not to be too distracting. It also helps that a lot of people just listen to D&D podcasts. So that kind of helps with if it is too distracting, like at least we still sound good, right? Like, Emmy, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I work really hard on the audio edit, like the audio only version, so that people who aren't visually able to watch, then when they listen, hopefully the audio is on point and it sounds good and isn't distracting from like flubs and mistakes and whatnot. And we tend to talk over each other a little bit, so I can kind of spread that out a bit in the audio edit. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because you guys seem to be really good friends behind the scenes and in general. uh, and so I wanna just ask, because I think it's very interesting with a group like yours. What's it like to start a like dedicated business venture with friends when it relies so much on personality?
That is a good question, my dude. I mean,
Eric, you got anything to
Eric,
say to that?
Eric, you wanna?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with me is, and maybe the position that I've put myself in is that I've been hyper vigilant with regards to us building this foundation of like trust. Like we're all on the same page. We're on the same page from the first day that we're doing this up until now, and you know, it's been kind of like this where I'm like ridiculously ambitious with some of the things that I want to try and do, and then they're like, "No, dude, no, that's ridiculous. No, don't do it. No, we're not doing that." or you know, like stuff that takes like a ton of time, and we all have, you know, our own stuff going on in real life, you know. So and we just got to really be there for each other. And communication, we communicate like every day. Like we got to make sure we talk about absolutely everything. And I mean, there's a couple other people that are in this project as well. You know, we got to communicate and coordinate with them too. And really, it's just like, you know, just having that understanding, making sure that, you know, no one is left behind or no one feels isolated or left out, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's been kind of a challenge just from the simple fact that we haven't known each other that long. Like, Steve and I are married, and
About a year or so with Eric.
yeah,
anyway.
like a year and a half.
We've been married longer. Yeah.
Yeah, we've only known Eric for about a year and a half, but we joined his Wednesday night campaigns with some other friends, and right away it was like, this guy is good. And I was super flattered when he approached us to ask if we wanted to start this thing, because he's a very creative person, and that kind of jives with me. And then he's also got the logic side that jives with Steve. And then, like, we added, like Eric said, we added a couple other friends into the mix, and it's actually been really fun.
Yeah, communication is probably the most important thing. Like Eric said, every day we're talking to each other, and like anytime we go to publish a video, I throw it up, you know, in the Discord. Hey, how's this look? Any suggestions? We good? Cool, publish. Just make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, but I think though, moreover than that, like when talking specifically about getting into this with like friends, you want to make sure that they're just as passionate as you are, you know. Otherwise, it's gonna peter out. It's gonna put stress on your guys' relationship, and then it's just, you know.
Honestly, to do something like this, everybody has to be all in, especially like when you have full-time jobs. Like when we were setting up scheduling, that was a whole ordeal. And then we've had to adjust a couple times since. Sometimes we record on these days, sometimes we record on those days. Hey, I can't make it this day. It's okay, we got a banked episode. It's communication and making sure everyone's all in. Otherwise, it will fail.
Yep.
Awesome. I want to jump into sort of the actual play side of this, specifically because you guys have this very interesting world that, again, I highly recommend anyone watching this to go to the Fortune Lore channel and check it out. But you guys have this combination world of Norse mythos and like futuristic tech. I wanted to know, what made you choose Norse mythology as your like catalyst for the campaign?
So that was me. When we decided to do this whole thing, we're like, okay, well, all three of us have DM'd before. Who's going to do the first campaign? And we're like, well, we'll think about it. And I wasn't planning on doing the first campaign as DM, just because nerves and stuff like that. But I randomly had the idea one day of like, oh, what if like it's this kind of sci-fi thing, and like, yeah, because I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. It might blow your mind. Don't tell anyone.
Oh, God. Oh, dear
I'm
God.
not that into fantasy, guys. I'm not.
Oh, wait, yeah.
I'm not that much into fantasy. I'm more of a sci-fi guy rather than fantasy. Like, I watch Lord of the Rings. It's all great and stuff, but like, I'm more into tech stuff because obviously, you know, I'm a techie. So, I was like, okay, well, maybe we have this techie kind of world, and then, you know, I don't know much about, like, kind of fantasy worlds, but I've always had kind of a love of Vikings. I've always, like, I'm a metalhead, so it kind of fits. I've always been into, like, Viking metal and all that, so I was like, yeah, let's make it more, you know, I gotta make it more interesting for me, and to kind of dedicate so much time to it and world building. So I'm like, yeah, Vikings. I like Vikings. Vikings are metal. Let's go Vikings. And it kind of just spun out from there. So yeah, it's just, I like metal. That's really the short answer.
That's very interesting because no, you don't have any like Nordic ties in your background, right? So it's all like
Not that I'm
interest.
Yeah.
It's cool. I
just
mean,
find it
as a
fascinating.
Nordic person, I was like, wow, he actually read things, and it's not just like, yes, I've seen Marvel, Thor, Love and Thunder, and that's where I got all my mythos from, as is sadly the case with some people.
Yeah.
It has been constantly for the last at least 6 months of him doing research and like trying to learn accents and learning the mythos that's there, and he's always like, listen, this is so interesting, and I'm like, okay,
let me tell you about this saga that I read. Oh my god, like, Loki goes in, makes fun of all, it's so cool.
Well, I mean, even,
I find it fascinating too.
Even your in one of the episodes that I had the pleasure of sitting through, you even pronouncing you know, the Bifrost as the Bifrost and not as the Bifrost is already like doing more than a lot of people do, right?
So
just
with
looking
stuff like
into
that,
proper pronunciation.
With stuff like that, big shout out to Dr. Jackson Crawford. You can check him out on YouTube. He's this guy in Colorado that is essentially a cowboy Norse expert. Like, he's a linguist with an expert in Norse mythology and culture and language. And when I found his channel, I just watched almost all of the videos in a row because he goes through all the sagas and stuff. But he specifically prides himself in using reconstructed, like the Norse reconstructed language, rather than like a lot of people say Bifrost because of like Icelandic and stuff like that, the modern Icelandic. But he's always teaching the reconstructed, and I just find that fascinating. So I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'll use that.
Hell
we
yeah.
kind of use it. We kind of switch back and forth sometimes interchangeably. I just kind of, in world reasons, chalk it up to, well, you know, like, there are different dialects for every language. Like, you know, North German and South German have like completely different sounding pronunciations of certain words. So why not? Sure.
Anyone that's watching who's a fellow Dane can tell you that small accents vary wildly in Europe, and especially here in the north, where people don't have anything to do with each other. So it's too cold to go outside. So I wanted to know, because you have, Steve, in your games, a lot of like custom rules and like events and cool like stuff going on within your games. And so I wanted to know, do you think that 5e lends itself well to those like custom rule stuff and events that you do, or is there maybe another system that you've tried out, or how's that been?
5e is really the only. I did try long ago Numenera just because it's sci-fi, and I'm like, oh, this is sci-fi. Let me try it. But for the most part, I've only learned 5e, and I definitely think it does kind of lend to homebrew like innately. Like you have all these guidelines, thousands and thousands of very specific rules, but there's always those holes. And there's always kind of room for flexibility, I feel. Like, the example I always give is the cat stat block in 5e. Cats don't have night vision? What? That is like their thing! Cats have night vision! So you know
It's
what?
like the
In my
only
world,
thing they're
cats
good
have
at.
night vision. That's the only
Exactly.
time they can see. So, like, I just find certain things that I'm like, well, that's nice, but it doesn't really make that much sense. Like, there's no mechanic for if you throw, like, catapult a person against a wall or shove them against a wall. There's no, like, real mechanic for that damaging you. But it definitely should damage you.
Oh,
So, you
I
know
mean,
what? I'll
don't
just use the
PSA,
same mechanic
don't
as fall damage.
Catapult your short friends against the wall.
No, do it to your enemies. Do it to the goblins. That's fun.
Yes.
Hey, what did they do to you? Jeez.
Incredible. And so here's a question that I am very interested to hear the answer to, which is, assuming some, some benefactor or some billionaire was like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm a huge fan of Forge of Lore, have infinite money. What kind of story would you like to tell if resources were not at all a thing to worry about?
I mean, me personally, like, it's all about storytelling. Another kind of way that when we were making this channel decided to try to stand out is to try to focus on storytelling. Like, again, it's all Eric's idea, where he's like, I want it to feel like it's just a bunch of friends around a campfire telling a story. Which is why we do I do the recaps like, yeah, do you guys remember when? Or like, but that's a story for next time and stuff like that. It just feels kind of cozy and just friends hanging out, making up a story together. So honestly, I don't think story-wise much would change. Maybe the effects and stuff would. Maybe we'd be able to afford to be in person and stuff like that.
Oh.
Better equipment.
That'd be
Heck yeah.
excellent.
Hell yeah.
But
Hell
me
yeah.
personally,
And I mean,
I don't think much would change.
maybe because we have all that money, we'd be doing it, full time or whatever. So maybe it'd be way more thorough in that way.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Maybe
Oh,
then
yeah.
I would
All my-
actually look up what it takes to run a stable rather than just guessing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know horses. What is it? You know how many
know.
times you said that? I don't know this. I'm not a this.
I
Get
don't
out
know
of here.
horses. What am I? I don't know trees. What am I? A
What
botanist?
am I, a centaur? Get out of here. No, but no, but all of the ambitious stuff that I spoke of, like stuff that would take too long or too much resources, we could definitely do that stuff. I've storyboarded like a few things that it's just like, no, no, this is stupid. No, stop.
Usually,
Like,
Eric,
reaction to a lot of Eric's suggestions from us is, wow, that is really cool. No one has time for that, but write that down.
yeah, that is really cool. I'm gonna give you a no on this one, dog. We're gonna.
Eric,
okay.
if we had all the money and resources in the world, Eric would lose his mind.
Oh,
He'd
bruh.
be like, okay, so we're gonna do a new intro, we're gonna do this kind of ad, he would lose his mind, and it would be so fun to watch.
I like
It would
writing
be-
ads. We have like 4 or 5 ads in the can right now.
Yeah.
But we just can't.
Fantastic. So that's actually a question I had written down, which was about specifically advertising and specifically about getting yourself out there, because as a smaller, channel with high quality content, how do you convince people to, come on over and see what we've got in the store, with such a global marketplace that is YouTube?
It's hard, man. I think Eric has probably a little bit more insight into that field since he's working with Josh on marketing.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent a very long time, most of my time, especially these days, thinking about that kind of stuff. And what it boils down to is being genuine, not just, hey, check us out. Hey, check us out. Hey. No, you have to like make these connections with people, and you want to, and I'm guilty of this too. You want to just everywhere, everyone all the time. And you don't want to just focus on, because if you can't get the focus of people who actually enjoy what you're doing, like they like D&D, they like the bigger shows, right? If you can't even get those people's attention, how are you supposed to get an old guy, in wherever, Nebraska, who likes football to watch your shit, right? So there's that. There's also, so you have to build a sort of little community, or join a community and just become part of a community. But then at the same time, you have to consider what's going to grab someone's attention. So even if they do like what you have to say, sometimes, especially in today's world, social media and all that stuff, they tune out after like 5 seconds because of just, what's the next thing, right? So you have to grab their attention immediately and hold that attention, and you have to be like humorous and whatnot and relatable and all that jazz.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, attention is a currency. That's why we pay it, right? That's what they say.
Yup.
That's actually pretty awesome. I'm going to use that on something at some point in my life. But you also, if you really want it, then you got to spend the time and the money to do it, right? So, like one of the things that I'm trying to do, and I've been really dragging my feet on it because it builds a lot of anxiety for me, is to go around locally and take a flyer and be like, yo, hey, can I hang this up in your shop? Hey, can I do this? Hey, do all that groundwork and whatnot, and then the ads, and that's just a process of, because we are in the field, here and there, we are familiar with how to make an ad, and so just that whole thing, and it takes a village and of, again, passionate, committed people to make something like that, and so it's just, and schedules and all this crazy stuff. So it's just getting it done and sticking with it and being,
Absolutely.
And building on top of that, like I've again, I don't do anything like this half-assed or anything. Boy, if you looked at my YouTube history, it would be all about the algorithm, Norse mythology and the YouTube algorithm, and how to train it to send you to the right audience. Content like us, like that we do, it's very niche. Crit Roll has like millions of subscribers. They get millions of views from millions of people. But anyone that's like not into D&D or like, collaborative storytelling, like our friends and family, they want to be supportive, and they're like, yeah, I tried watching your show. I'm sorry. It's like, no, it's not for you. It's okay. It's okay. Like, I appreciate it, but it's not for everyone. So a lot of it is coming down to targeted audiences, especially with the YouTube algorithm. How it works is you want to kind of associate. We want to associate this show with the other actual plays. So when someone watches a Crit Roll or Dimension 20 or anything else, any other actual play, over in the sidebar, oh, what's this icon? Oh, is that another actual play? Oh, never heard of them. Let's check that out. It's a lot of work,
For
but
sure.
it's focusing. It's about focusing, really.
The algorithm is a merciless god, for sure. I want to know, because you guys mentioned, both you, Eric, and Steve, that one of the things you do to sort of stand out is focus on storytelling. So I wanted to know, when you tell a story, what is important to you? What elements of storytelling are your priorities?
Man, Jake, you are really good at this. That is a really good question, man. Honestly, what I find important in storytelling, especially in like collaborative storytelling, as a DM trying to convey the story to the players, I kind of try to focus on stuff like feeling, like just the senses of yeah, you see like, you know, a peasant like over begging for change or whatever on the side of the street, but like, how does that affect you? Like, you see them and you feel bad, or I just try to infuse feelings and thoughts. Like, a lot of my descriptions of things happening, I'll be like, you look up to the robot or whatever, and you know, it's a giant monster. No, wait, hang on, as you look closer, it's a robot. And like, just kind of that thought process of what they would be seeing and feeling and thinking. And I try to infuse that into kind of the description. But yeah, it's a really kind of fine line not to like control the players of like, you think this. It's like, well, not necessarily. I mean, you might. I just try to give them the information that they can work with, and it can be pretty difficult sometimes.
A lot of what Steve said, yes. There's you paint a picture with words, right? Every single time, and in my own experiences, you give a feeling. If you can give them a feeling, they'll paint in the rest, and their imagination is going to be better than whatever you describe, right? So if you can just give them like a general, like a creepy alley, on a dark, wet, rainy night or whatever, if you can just give them that really creepy feeling, oh man, there it is. Or like if you introduce a character, and maybe sometimes I haven't done this as well as I should have, but you give them qualities that your players can attribute to, like some kind of archetype, like do they move like a snake a little bit, or are they like really proud, or very aggressive, or and you kind of have to describe these kinds of ways of talking, ways of moving, and so then they get a very good idea in their mind of an attitude or a feeling. But the other thing is character progression is very big. So, and a lot of times when it's really impactful is if it's as a result of player choices. So they choose A instead of B. Okay, well now that building of orphans is now on fire, and oh man, they don't have anything anymore, and oh geez, it's real bad, and now they're in a really bad time. And so when you see them down the road, they might be resentful towards you, and or hateful, and you did a whole lot of feelings about that because it was directly.
Make choices matter, absolutely. Specific question for Emmy and Eric. Leaving you out on this one, Steve, sorry. But as players of an actual play that was designed to be an actual play and not just like a home game, how does character creation differ between a home game and an actual play?
Honestly, I've done several campaigns with Steve at this point. And character creation, there was a lot of communication to make sure that I was doing something different from everyone else without knowing what everyone else was doing. So there was a lot of going, is this unique for this campaign? Should I pivot? It's honestly not terribly different. But yeah, communication is a lot more tight in this. Like we'll have talks as a group and go, okay, we're kind of thinking of doing this next, and then communicating with Steve to be like, just so you are prepared, this is sort of where we're leaning without like giving any details, you know, because we have our own side chat that doesn't go to him, but just to give him an idea of, hey, get ready for, you know, we're going to this town next or
Just
whatever.
so you know, we're going to
But
Edicalp. Oh, let me build Edicalp real quick. One moment.
Whereas normally that would not be a discussion in a home campaign, I think.
Yeah, right. So for my part of it, it's very much so kind of like what Emmy said. Honestly, though, before this campaign, I had not been a player for, I want to say, like 5-6 years. I was just a DM for like a super long time. So learning how to be a player again, because actually, honestly, in my opinion, being a player is more difficult than being a DM. And because when you're a DM, you are partially in the spotlight all the time. You just are, because you are ready to interact with them whenever they do or say anything. But as a player, you have to like jump in and out, step in, step out, step in, step out. And as always, as I like to say, I'm guilty of stepping in and just hanging out and being like, the spotlight. But that's just because I'm a goof and stupid, and no one stops me for the most part. They're just like, okay, yep, and then that's happening. Good, yes, this is yep, and then oh, yep, and he's doing that. Oh my God, he's doing. So that's a big thing. When especially with regards to actual plays. I mean, just in any game of D&D, you know, being able to share the spotlight is a thing. But in actual plays, you know, you want to make sure that it's entertaining for the audience, but at the same time, you want to show. The idea is to portray what it's like to actually be playing a home game. You know, you don't want it to feel too overly produced.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and with regards to creating an actual character, man, I mean, you have hundreds of ideas, and you definitely want to be part of a team, right? So there's that. You want to fill the gaps, fill all the holes in the team, but really, you want to be able to play somebody who they grow. You know, they're multidimensional. There's a conflict with the world. There's a conflict with maybe other players in the party, and then the conflict within themselves. And you just want to kind of roll that out pretty, slowly.
Awesome. I want to jump off something that you got into a little bit, Eric, which is spotlighting. And Steve, you can jump back in on this one because
I'm back.
I wanted to know how you guys as a group approach spotlighting each player in various scenarios, because not every character is going to be relevant in every scene. So how do you approach giving the spotlight when it's necessary in a natural way?
I mean, as DM, you definitely want to be like cognizant of like everyone's getting their turn, everyone's getting their spotlight, and sometimes it comes down to kind of their personality. Like Sam is a fairly quiet person and kind of reserved for the most part.
In this game.
In person, he's a lot more.
Thank you, Emmy. My head was about to explode.
He's shy, let's put it that way. And so,
he's coming out of his shell, though.
Occasionally I'll be like, so, hey, when I notice he's kind of not really, having a part, I'm like, hey, you kind of call him out, and not to, like, put them on the spot and, oh my God, what are you gonna do? But like, hey, what's Marcus doing right now? Like, what's he up to? Hey, are you gonna pray? Because, sometimes they forget, or they don't realize how they can portray. Like, this first kind of arc of story is very, like, kind of Nifrim based, like, because she's the techie character, and this is about technology, so she gets the spotlight a lot. So I try to kind of like, okay, well, what's Sideric doing? What's Gendry doing? And stuff like that. It can be a juggle at times, but it helps to just kind of. I will say
to that point, Steve, that has been very uncomfortable for me. I tend to be more of a support character kind of person. So to have to take the spotlight, I'm like, oh, me? Oh, really? Okay, let's do this.
But that creates very interesting storytelling moments, I feel, as a viewer. Because, you can almost tell immediately, at least if you're like a people person like me, you can almost tell immediately like who's what kind of character in real life based on how they play. So it's really interesting as a viewer to see Emmy, your being thrust into the spotlight and like having to deal with that, because I feel like that's a thing that a lot of collaborative storytelling shows struggle with, is just, oh, we'll put the talkative guy in the spotlight all the time because then it flows easily and the show goes on. But challenging that from time to time is very interesting.
I think that brings up a good point, that at the beginning, whether it's like a private game at home or if it's like an actual play, setting expectations, having everyone talk at length about how they like to have fun, because there might be like one dude that's just like, yo dude, combat all the time, screw this role-playing crap, I don't care about that. And then people who just are like, no dude, combat's lame, it's all bogged down and it's all slow and I have to wait forever for my turn and right? So like, and if it's a mishmash of that, great, but like, sometimes also expectations or motivations rather sort of change. You guys will be playing long enough and then someone's like, I don't have time for this in my life right now, I so it's
just
it's
want a
absolutely
shopping episode.
where you guys. So if there's anything that we would want to maybe drill into anyone wanting to try and do this, it's communication is 100 bajillion % the thing that is like most important thing.
And having that goal,
absolutely.
when we first set out to do this, we all made it very clear that our goal was to tell a story and to do a lot more role playing than battle. Like, of course, we're trying to find that balance of having both, but role play was definitely like the fixed goal we had in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much so that like for my backstory, I like wrote a thing, and then Steve was just like, "No, bro, I just needed the name of the town you were in." Jesus Christ!
I was like, yeah,
And I'm
I
like,
need
oh,
your backstory.
Oh God!
He sent me a short story of like this guy waking up and like starting his day, and I'm like, this is really cool.
I mean,
I would
that's
love to
awesome.
release this sometime. Where are you from?
Bro, I just need some city names, okay? Damn.
Like,
I'm
any
so
siblings? I just
looking-
need the facts.
I am so looking
yeah,
forward
I
to the
mean-
end of this campaign so I can read what you wrote, because Steve told me
It's really good.
that you did not send him like a normal backstory, and I was like, oh my god, I want to know what he wrote.
I mean, it's normal
That's
for
fantastic.
me. It's normal for me, you guys. I don't...
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm on Team Eric here. I write like
Yay.
full-on little novels when I write character backstory.
Aw, yeah.
Oh, my
And then
backstory was
sometime-
extensive as well.
And
You
then
sit there
sometimes I'm
sipping your straw, and you're
sometimes
just
I
like,
can't make up anything, and I'm like 2 lines of dialogue. He's a cool guy, and that's it.
I don't know, a thief.
Sometimes I just artist block, but most of the time it's like a full-on big thing.
yeah, man. I mean, generally, when you come up with a cool concept, it just flows most of the time.
Absolutely, yeah. So you mentioned, Emmy, that like you're saying like you can't wait for it to end to see what Eric's backstory is and like to learn all the little secrets and all that jazz. But what plans, if we can get a little sneak peek perhaps, what are the plans for post Thorin?
Oh yeah, we've actually talked about that a little bit recently. We're not entirely sure what's gonna happen. We do have a few things up our sleeve, because I think one of us, ideas guy, might be able to take the reins.
From the start, we
No,
decided
dog, I don't
that
have any ideas about.
From the start, we decided, like, well, we can, like I said, when we first started, we're like, okay, who wants a DM? I don't know. The plan all along was like, okay, I'll take first campaign, then we'll switch off to, like, one of the others to DM and stuff like that. So it'll definitely be a change up of kind of the style and stuff like that. And someone else will definitely be the ones, like, DMing. Don't have details yet, but we've got some ideas floating around. But It's
Actually-
kind of frustrating because it's going to be a long time before that happens.
It'll
It
be a
is
little
going to be
while.
quite a
So
long
much.
time, but
I
I
have
do.
so
You
much.
said Cowboy Viking earlier in the interview. That gave me actually some pretty nifty ideas.
Oh God,
Dude,
yes.
the Viking
from
Western,
future
I'm
Vikings to cowboy Vikings.
We're gonna do Western.
You know,
Reach for the sky.
why not? We'll do every Viking.
iteration
subgenre.
Like-
possible.
Yes.
Boom. How do
Every
you set
Viking
genre
yourself
spaghetti
apart?
plus Viking.
That's how you
Yeah.
set yourself apart. We are Vikings.
Yes. What Forge of Lore? Every genre but Viking.
Yep.
No,
Every genre.
Well, Tarnation,
plus
is
Viking.
that a Jotun?
every genre plus Viking. That's the tagline for the show. Absolutely.
Yep, we're stealing that.
Every genre plus Vikings.
Yep.
Thanks, Jake.
Totally taking
Stolen. Yep.
Totally taking
You're welcome.
That was our idea.
You're welcome. So, I as sort of a round outer, because we've gone through my prepped questions, but I am interested just in sort of in the moment question of do you think that online D&D can have the same feeling and emotional attachment as sitting around a table with people? And especially when it's making it for a show, do you think that there are limitations or perhaps advantages to being online?
I mean, I'll start. Yes. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, there are definitely advantages and disadvantages to online versus in-person play. For example, I can wear my pajama pants. I don't have to put on shoes. That's kind of nice. I'm in my own home and stuff like that. So that's kind of nice. But also, oh, my internet's dying. I guess we can't play today. And stuff like that, or scheduling. We're in 2 different time zones, so there's also a bit of that. And the technical
But that's
aspect,
also
like
kind
you
of a
said.
benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
with all
the
that, it definitely
digital,
comes...
if there's any benefit to the digital play, is to be able to play with people that you normally wouldn't have access to.
Mhm.
That's an awesome thing. You definitely have to deal with time differences and stuff, but that is a good advantage to it.
Sure. Yeah. And there's been a lot of stuff that, just with our actual play that we're doing right now, that Steve's been able to do with different sounds, running different music, having all this stuff, and it keeps progressing. But let's just say, Jake, so that ladder down to your dungeon behind you,
Mhm.
right there, right?
To
where
I keep all the billions. And,
Right. See, so
Yeah.
props, stuff like that. I have a candle that smells like a wizard's library right here. They can't get any of those sniffs. Just me.
So
This
really
is just for
bad.
me. Right? Yeah. Really bad. Smells like BO because they don't like to shower. I don't know.
And
But
pages.
there's stuff like that. Puzzles. I used to love crafting physical puzzles.
Mm.
Like having a pen that when you heat up the paper, it disappears, or when you freeze the paper, it disappears. Stuff
Yeah,
like that, and that's
for
just
sure.
stuff that you can't do. You can craft something, like with us in our background. You can craft something where it's an animation and they're looking through some stuff, but it's all digital. It's not in their hands, and there's an aspect of that does get lost. But then with the D&D Beyond and all this other stuff, it's so much easier to keep track of everything, and it's more cohesive, and it's a lot easier to just sit down and play, and you don't have all these pieces of paper and all this writing, chicken scratch here, there, and everywhere. So there's definitely a lot of advantages to it too.
Yeah, with the thing, I try
Awesome.
to kind of make up for the kind of lack of in-person benefits with stuff like music, sound effects, and stuff. All the music and sound effects you guys hear in the show, that's live. They're hearing that as well, and I find especially music puts people in a mood. We were talking about that earlier, how to kind of convey a story well and convey feelings. Is a lot of it is music, sound effects, little effects during a big attack on a city. No spoilers. Like I changed the background to have like explosions, like little sand hits and blood splatter and stuff like that. That kind of intended to make you feel really kind of on edge. The sound effect I used for a Gallahorn was long and annoying, and it was meant to be, because
Yes,
it got the exact reaction that I intended, which was everyone like mid-sentence being like, what is that? What? Like little bits like that kind of help with the kind of remoteness about it, I find.
That was actually something that Steve has always enjoyed doing. We played a honeymoon or a campaign for our honeymoon where it was just the two of us, and there was this huge scene that happened, and he had music prepared. He had a dragon roar that he recorded himself that was terrifying, and like he had this scene mapped out to a T, and like the emotions that I felt during that moment, like scared and really nervous, and like I got real sweaty. I was like, that is a skill to be able to tell a story with multiple factors, and being able to do it digitally, that does tend to be an advantage as well.
One last quick thing on this is one thing that we've found recently that I think has helped a lot with the kind of remote play is Tailspire, like as a virtual tabletop. I was using Owlbear, just the top down or whatever, moving little icons around. It works. It's great.
2D.
2D. It works fine, but like once I found Tailspire, I'm like, we have to implement this immediately because I can literally build a world, and they can go around and literally explore the world, like with their little mini. And if their mini doesn't see it, they don't see it. And it helps so much. So like just kind of something immersive like that to kind of pull them in.
Big shout out to Tailspire, as well as One More Multiverse. Shout out to them as well. Great little indie people who make a really cool product.
Yeah, that kind of harkens back to what I was talking about a bit ago with regards to speaking to your players and just the whole group. That is how they have fun. Are they mostly a visual player? Do they need physical things? Because I mean, if it's props, because props do sometimes give a lot of sentimental value to either a campaign or an event, and you can just mail that to somebody. It'll get to them. Whenever it gets to them, and maybe you can plan for that. But I mean, like, do you need to see, Tailspire type crazy awesome stuff, or is it all? Are we good with just the theater of the mind? Right.
Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Highly appreciated, and thank you, Steve, for reaching out. And this is an open invitation to anyone that wishes to have a conversation with me to reach out as well in the same way. And for everyone watching, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. All the links to the Forge of Lore people, to Steve's embarrassing YouTube channel, and the Cowboy Viking will be in the description below, so make sure to check that out. And thank you so much for checking out the Actual Story of Actual Play. I've been your host, Jake, and I will see you next time.